Just wanted to do a quick introduction on Kellam Knives and talk about them a little bit. These knives are made in Finland. The company is Kellam Knives. This is their 5-inch puukko. And me and this knife have been through a lot together. Beautiful handle, beautiful construction. It's a great knife. I wanted the 5-inch. And I've abused the heck out of this blade. You can see the crack developing in the handle, and that's from batoning. And I've done it all with this knife, and it performed for me just fine. So that is a Kellam knife. That's the Kellam 5-inch puukko. These are two I bought just for fun. I added the string and turned it into a neck knife. This one came with more of like a convex kind of edge to it. Good quality. This one I bought just because I thought it was cool. It's a little pocket knife. It has a little lock. And there's your knife. So take note, that's how that edge looked like from the factory. And then you tighten that down to lock it. What this video is going to be about are these. And these are the Tundra Leukus. There is a little, and I'm not sure because my other Kellam knife, my puukko didn't come with this. But from the factory, so I don't know if this is a quality control issue or if this is how they do it. But there's milling marks on the bevel. And both knives had that, and it's textured. Like you can actually feel that. So I'm not sure if that's a normal thing or if that slipped by quality control. Not 100% sure. And they both came with secondary bevels. You can see that reflecting in the light. So it's a Scandi with a secondary bevel, which I don't mind so much on the big boy, but I wish they would have come with actual Scandinavian with no secondary bevels. And if somebody wanted to micro bevel this, they could do it if they wanted it to. This one I think should have the secondary bevel, being a big brute of a knife. But the second one had the mill marks and the secondary bevel, and I don't think the little one should have had that. Now, this knife has the factory edge on it. I have not sharpened this knife since I've gotten it. I've stropped it. I've stropped it quite a bit. So we'll kind of be able to test the factory edge a little bit on this. Just over 8 inches, like 8 1/4. And then the little Leuku, which is the little guy, at 3 3/4 roughly. I'm pretty sure it's pretty close. 3 3/4, just under 4 inches. And just over 8 inches. And between these two knives, it takes care fine woodworking and finer carving tasks, meat processing, game carving, stuff like that. And then this big guy can take care of the big food prep, the batoning, the chopping, any of the big stuff you need to do. Another thing to take note is these are like almost the same thickness, I think. That's pretty thin for a big knife like this. There's that micro bevel I was talking about. There's that micro bevel and the milling lines. And then this is the edge that I resharpened. So I ground off the secondary bevel, so those mill lines are all gone. The secondary bevel's all gone. So we won't be able to test the factory edge on this guy, but we can still put this knife through the paces. These are not equipped to strike a fire steel. The backs aren't 90 degree. So if you want these to scrape a fire steel, you're going to have to take them to some sort of a stone or a grinder. And that's what I did on the back of this one. So the sheath is quite big. So when you're wearing it, this is going to flop around a whole bunch. Unless you tie it down to your thigh somewhere. You could poke like a hole in the end of this and wrap it around your leg. I usually just put it in my pack, or I have a kind of a weird pocket on the side of my pants I can stick these in. Also got a little clanky, but good retention. It just kind of pressure fits into the leather. There is a plastic insert in here. You probably can't see it. And that one does not have a plastic insert. So yeah, we'll start off with this big guy, do some carving, some chopping. So I have this box elder tree back here, and it's got all this stuff that's growing off here, kind of shrubby stuff. It needs to get trimmed. We're gonna go ahead and trim it up with this. So this style of knife isn't going to be a heavy duty chopper. It'll be good for delimbing things, delimbing trees, getting all this small stuff. We'll get into some harder stuff though. So the factory edge is pretty sharp. Like I said, I've had this for quite a while and I've only stropped it. We're going to try chopping this guy. This is a pretty hard piece of wood. For chopping and anything heavy, you don't really get a lot of oomph behind it. Just giving it your regular grip, like this. So what I end up doing, so I grab it where it's flared out here, and it seems like I get more momentum. Now it can chop, but not the best heavy duty chopper. It's doing it, but how long it would take to get through this and how much effort would go into it. Now it's nice knowing you can do it. But by grabbing it way back here, it's not the most comfortable, and you kind of risk this thing flying out of your hands. You can leave it in your hands and kind of let that flare catch on here and kind of whip too. But the ergonomics on this big one, not the best for chopping, at least for my hands. It's a little wide and awkward. So if you're looking for a big, heavy-duty, dedicated chopper, I would not recommend this. If you want something more nimble, just a big, nimble knife, this is great. I personally really like this knife. It's great for food prep. This handle fatigues the hand. Pretty good piece. Wish me luck. Go. That's a pretty gnarly piece of wood. Now we'll move on to some carving. And we're gonna do a couple different pieces of wood here. This piece is very green. We'll try to do maybe some rolling cuts here. Carving with a big knife like this is never going to be ideal or easy. Just gonna do a stop cut. I don't think you would have any trouble carving a tri-stick with this knife. I think it's thin, light, and nimble enough. That you can take care of most carving tasks. So we did like a rolling cut here, a stop cut here. Did a V cut just fine. This piece of wood's a little bit harder. This chicken wing grip, it's okay. You gotta kind of figure out your grip. For me, this handle is not super comfortable. I can get it to work, but due to the overall size of this knife and the geometry of the tip of the knife, I'm going to say this is not the best for drilling holes. It can do it, but it is just not digging into the wood very much. And it's really hard to control in this kind of fashion. So, you know, that's not something I would say you're going to really be able to do with this thing. Another thing you can do with these longer knives is use it kind of like a draw knife. Push knife. We're going to try some feather sticks. I found a dry piece of pine. Now these aren't going to be able to scrape a fire steel. Is it really that hard to tie one of these to your fire steel? Just saying. See if we can get it to catch a spark. Alright, that fire was a little harder to light. Not gonna lie, I don't think that wood is completely dry. It took a little bit of effort. So that is the Leuku Tundra Leuku from Kellam Knives. It's the big one. Never been sharpened, had it for a long time. We just did all that carving and batoning. Haven't stropped it. and it's still pretty sharp. Doesn't help that it's windy. So yeah, it doesn't have a perfect edge, as it shouldn't, but that kind of just tells you that the heat treat is good, and that with a good stropping, they would even be sharper. It's cutting the phone book paper pretty easily. There are some hang-ups and some parts of the paper that are getting torn, but it's well above a working edge. So now let's talk about the little guy. I don't think there's a lot to be said about this guy. You're not going to baton with this. This could be a good bird and trout, a hunting knife. It's got a much thinner handle. The ergonomics are way better. You can't chop with it. It's way too short to baton anything substantial. And it does not have a factory edge on it to test, but I'll tell you what, we'll do some carving and we'll see how well this edge holds that I put on there without the secondary bevel, and we'll baton a couple of these small pieces over here. We'll start off with some of this green stuff. I have not used this since I put this edge on here, and holy crap. Wow. That is amazing. I almost don't even want to use it now. Look at that. That's impressive. It is green, but that's amazing. Wow. Absolutely no problems at all. So if you don't like the secondary bevel, you can get this thing, grind that off, and this thing would be an absolutely killer carver. I mean, it was good at carving before I did that. I just prefer not to have it on my whittling knife. That is one sharp knife. We are running out of daylight here, so I'll try to make this quick. So this one drills way better. You get more control in the handle, and it's just got a better shape on the tip for drilling. And Scandies usually grind at a pretty thick tip, so the drilling's pretty good. Dry piece of wood. You could absolutely carve a spoon with this knife. That's where this type of knife is going to excel, is in cutting wood with this grind. This thing just eats green wood. Would definitely not want to baton anything bigger than this. You wouldn't need to. Absolutely not. This is definitely a lot easier at feather sticking than the big one. You get way more control. The ergonomics are better. It's also way sharper. So here we are at the Kellam Knives website, kellamknives.com, and you're going to want to get to the fixed blade knives in the knife shop, and this is where you can find all of their awesome knives. And for these particular knives, you go to KT line, and then we'll scroll down, and they have a bunch of Tundra, different versions of their Tundra knife. Tundra Whittler, Camp Whittler, but this is the Tundra Leuku set, and it looks like right now they are $237. That's probably about the same I spent on mine. Like I bought mine a long time ago, so it looks like their materials and the way they make them are just slightly different. They're also handmade with natural materials, so not any two knives are going to look the same. So if you guys are interested in checking these out, carbon steel blades, doesn't say HRC or what kind of steel or anything, but for how these knives have performed for me, I'm pretty sure that they have a very acceptable heat treat. Thing is an absolutely wonderful carving knife. It'll do whatever it is you need it to do. Kellam Knives Tundra Double Leukus. Great knives if you really like traditional Scandinavian style knives, Sami style knives made in Finland. These are a great set of knives. You get 2 knives. You get the small carving knife and then the big, more of a brute. It's still a slicer, can do some chopping, can baton, do food prep. And then you get one for carving. It's a nice little package. If you're not really into this one in particular, I would get that 5-inch Puko or look at the Kellam Wolverine. Just look around at any of the knives on that website and they're all fantastic. I really love the brand. Everything I've gotten from them has been really good. Love these knives. Not sure who makes them. I'm pretty sure there's a company who's making them for Kellam to sell on their website. Probably some pretty well-known handmade knives that are coming out of Finland. But that's going to wrap it up today. It's getting dark out. Got to take the dogs for a walk. Got to go back to work tomorrow. So everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.